In Denmark, we are pretty famous for our pastry. The raspberry chops that I show in this recipe is not that known outside Denmark, but you can buy it in any baker in Denmark. That was Denmark a lot, wasn't it? Well, here's the recipe. When you want to bake raspberry chops, you want them to fill the entire baking pan. So I measure it with my rolling pin. You can use a yard stock or something like that, whatever it's called in English. Then you roll it out into a square, start with the corners, roll out 4 corners from the middle. And if it starts sticking, you add some flour, you can roll it onto the pin. Add some flour to the table and put it back. And we want it to be really thin, so we have to roll pretty carefully. And it needs to be a little wider. And when I want to move it, I add it on the rolling pin. That's the easiest way to move a big thin piece of dough like that. Carefully. Then I add it to the baking pan where I put some baking paper. And then some marmalade. This is homemade raspberry marmalade. And I add a relatively thick layer, about as much as you would put on a piece of white bread to enjoy that. And now we need the second layer. First I make 4 corners. And then it's a square-ish, and then I roll that out. And again, make sure it's floured enough that it'll let go of the table. And then you keep rolling until it's the same size as the previous piece of dough. And then up onto the rolling pin again. Or not again, but with this piece of dough too. Make sure there's a little flour so it doesn't stick on the rolling pin. That would be bad luck too. Then we simply roll it out on top of the raspberry jam. There's a small hole, just close that with a piece of short crust. It's a bit uneven, so I roll it once more. Then I poke some holes to enable air to escape. And it's baked like this. It's a bit uneven. So I put a baking pan on top of it and some sort of weight. So it flattens until it cools. When it's cool, you can remove the baking paper. So, and this is a standard frosting, icing. With icing, sugar and water, nothing else. And luckily it hides a multitude of sins, so the cake will end up looking fine. Then I use a pizza cutter, but you can use a serrated knife or a sharp knife. I cut off the uneven edges so it becomes as square or as straight as possible. Then I just cut into the middle, 4 lanes, and then 4 lanes the other way. Then we end up with 16 small cakes. And they look very nice. And it's very easy, so enjoy. And you can find the list of ingredients and the recipe on kvalifood.